Well folks, welcome back to the workshop. Today we have another mystery box or mystery bag of tools. This pile of stuff is lying outside the workshop door for the last few weeks and I really need to get through it. Don't even know what's in this stuff, but I know from the company it's coming from it'll probably be messy. So let's see what they're standing on. Well, the big thing sticking at the front, it's an obvious one. It's going to be a grinder. We're all tangled up. There's going to be a lot of grinders in this. 4.5 inch Bosch, 9 inch Makita, that's the older one. Makita SDS, that's the 2630. Just dumper. Grinders and drills then. So another Bosch grinder, two Makita 4.5 inch, another Bosch again, Hitachi impactor, and a Hitachi cordless grinder, and a Bosch cordless drill. Right, we need to see what we can fix out of this lot and see what's actually worth fixing. Right, where do we start? Start probably the Hitachis first. Right, so we'll go to the wee grinder here first. That mightn't be too bad, it could just be brushes or the brush holder. Now this stuff will look fairly dirty and dusty. That's because this crowd they're coming from actually work with concrete. It's a bit of an odd selection of tools for working with concrete. They're not pouring concrete as in driveways or streets. They're actually making stuff from concrete like furniture and ornaments and stuff. It's stuck. So they're doing a lot of grinding and drilling. Yeah. That's a little bit melted. So that's why they've got so many drills and grinders on. You can see this one has been in before too. Particular one is the G18 DSL. It's from 2017. I've got a bit of work out of this one. Let's pull off this head a wee bit first before we can take off the body off. Because the brush ring actually catches on the armature. So if you take the motor out, you have to lift it. Slide it out that way. So this has done a wee bit of work anyway. And she's a bit black looking. That might just be down to the fact that the brushes aren't moving. This one here has melted. It's actually melted the actual brush holder too. Cap's gone as well. That one is anyway. Right. Change that out. Thing's actually still running, so it's just not getting enough power. Simply because that there isn't making contact. Clean this up first and see what she looks like without the actual black marks on it. Has got a little bit of work done. Sort of put it on a little bit. So it's done a little bit for a cordless grinder, especially a Hitachi one. And the way this is melted, and the fact the brushes look still have a chamfer on them, see from the end, that suggests these aren't old. Check this first, because this was on before. This was on twice before though. Two different numbers. See what was done the last time. Right, it's been in this time, or January last year and the year before. First time I got a brush ring. This time last year I got a set of brushes. So this time it's going to be the same thing, brush ring and brushes. So I would imagine this armature is actually bad. If it's in that many times, you'll get away with changing the brush holder and brushes once, same as the Makita. Second time you're pushing it, to be honest, because they melt. This heats up, changes the resistance, then it takes more current to run it, meaning it generates more heat more quickly whenever you are using it. Boys get it back, they're assuming it's repaired and going to work the exact same as the last time, but it's not. They can never do the same amount of work for as long. They just generate overheat. So eventually they start burning them up a lot easier. So doing this a third time is a bit pointless. It's just going to overheat very quickly again and do the same thing unless you change the armature. But that's probably costing about 40 or 50 euro. To change the brushes and the brush holder in this is going to cost about 50 euro on their own. So even that's an expensive wee thing to do. If you're putting that on as well, it's 100 quid. To be honest, not going to be worth it. Not for an old 2017 brushed Hitachi grinder now. So that I'm actually just going to leave. It's just getting a little bit too expensive. It would also be a lot easier to just leave it as is, but generally tend to try and put them back together. Or anything to just save space, less messy, getting them back when they're intact. Last time only cost like 15 euro to put a set of brushes onto it. I wouldn't want to go charge them another 55 for it to do such little work again. And this is coming from a company, not just an individual, so I wouldn't imagine the boy paying the bill is going to be the same boy using the tool. I'd also still have more of these as well, so I might as well give them back to him in pieces, so he has all the pieces for spares if he needs it. So it's one Hitachi, not fixed. Not off to the best of starts here anyway. And also this one might not be promising. Dead. This could be a motor. It's been opened before. Hope I haven't looked at this one before. No numbers on it anyway. This is a basic little tool. These Hitachi ones back in the day were basic. Yeah, motor's gone. You can see the two ends. Brass brush holder. They're actually both facing the same way. Both of them are pointing down the way. So the brushes have worn out, and one of the holders is just a piece of spring brass with the brush sitting on the end. Whenever the brush wears out, the brass starts rubbing on the armature, just cuts through, and eventually falls down at the back of the armature. So the two, instead of sitting like this, end up sitting like this here, pointing the same direction. So that's a motor. We'll just see if it'll be worth doing. What's that? WH18DGL. And also just check the serial number, see if this was in before. Yes, it was in before. January last year. Not worth fixing. Needs a new motor. It's costing €80 to fit a new motor. Not worth fixing. €5 inspection fee charged. And I just went and sent the same thing back in again for another €5 inspection fee. Lovely. Nothing's changed in a year. The motor's still gone. And it's still going to cost at least €80 to fix it. For this age of a machine, and the fact there's only Hitachi, they weren't expensive. That's extremely light duty. Would not be worth it. So that's number 2. Not worth fixing. And not worth fixing for a second time. Happens sometimes. Like I say, it's come from a company. Whoever using it, once it stops working, they just hand it into the office, and the tools just lay there till they build up enough, till they send enough in for repair. So that's come back, somebody's tested it and just thrown it back into the same bucket. So make sure to mark it in black marker all over. There was the number there, look. I'll write all over it, not worth fixing this time, so it doesn't come out again. So it's 2 not fixed. Now we're going on to a Bosch. There's a modern Bosch one, brushless. This is the GSP 18V/60C. This might be a simple problem look. She's working, but she's not selecting the speeds. The gear selector's faulty somehow. It's not getting into or staying on the actual gears. This one should be fine to fix, as long as we don't need any parts. Can't buy any parts for inside the gearbox itself. So if anything goes, you have to buy the whole gearbox, but might have a couple of scrap ones out the back anyway, if we do need a part. I'm hoping this will be a simple one. Give us a quick wee clean out as well. She's a bit dusty. Click off that wee sensor as well. And there's actually something going on inside the gearbox. It's just not going on. Right, clean that there out a little bit, clean out the housing, just clean this down first. Not come back. Why exactly? Don't actually see what the problem is there. Doesn't appear to be anything jamming it. So this side's alright. This is driving alright. She's spinning no problem, driving the chuck. So the selector's back at this side, change it between the two gears. Not to say there's any metal or anything inside of this. I'll clean these down, I'll rebuild it, see what it does then. Sometimes in order to see what the actual problem is, you just have to clean it all down so you can see it more clearly. And in this case, it tells you absolutely nothing. Can't see anything wrong with this. There's no damage or anything on any of the parts, and I can't see why it wasn't engaging. One thing I can think is maybe this wasn't engaged properly. That clicks into there. Yeah, it's not actually going to right in that side now. That might be the problem. If that pushes down, this washer can then move around behind it, or move with it around. You can actually snag. So this here can't actually rotate, it's locked on. The washer can. I can just spin. So if this comes out and the washer moves, then it actually locks it out, so it can't go down. So this packs the whole thing out. So this gear selector can't actually move back in. So that could be the problem. Right, do have a scrap one that is locked into place. That one just ain't holding right. To be honest, it's just not the best of designs, to be quite honest with you. Only relying on these two little tiny pieces of plastic to hold that in place, not solidly affixed at all. So do away with that. I'm not sure if this will go together like this or not. Just have to give it a try. Put a little bit of grease in there too. That's the top, and the change lever's on top. Might not, so just take out the change lever. It's not going to go on like that anyway. Drop that in place. These back on, and then put on the top. So let's say there's the top. Even the way this is held together isn't that great. Just two little wedges basically. but if you have a scrap one, you can still fix it. Like I say, without the scrap one, you're replacing the whole thing, just not the chuck. So you'd have to remove the chuck, replace the whole gearbox, which would not be cheap. So that's her. Select it now like she should. Get rid of that stuff. I'll just clean this down. That gets her looking a lot nicer and hopefully functioning correctly. That wee boy just sits on here. Click that on. Put it up on your motor. Should just push in, and you can drop on your selector. Just about bare looking up here. It's a small looking wee gearbox on it. It's not a big heavy drill, but decent wee motor on it. Plenty crammed in down this side, but all of this here is not replaceable. They are actually spade connectors, so if your field does go, you can swap them out easy enough if you have scrap ones. But good heavy wires and all of this as well. It's very cramped for space. And that should be her. Going into and driving both gears. That's her. A wee quick and easy fix, but only if you have a scrap body. That's just not the best way to lock them gears on. That's her anyway. Suspension, do a bit of a clean before we do anything. Next up, tackle one of the wee Bosch grinders. Doesn't sound healthy for a start. It's actually a really old one, GWS 660. These would have been a cheaper grinder back in the day, but obviously they did stand the test of time. Made in Russia, 2010. They know how to make stuff. Right, she works. She sounds rough. Oh, obviously cut in fiberglass anyway. Packed out with it. Yeah, it's not too bad. Now, hopefully this is just bearings. Brushes are also worn, but are they worn out? Halfway. That's the problem one. It's kind of like gears too, but inside of there is actually fine. A little bit of damage because they're rattling around. might survive that. Right, quick clean, blow all this down, clean all this off. We'll change in 2 bearings. Right, don't want to be doing too much of this because closer inspection there is a little bit of damage to them gears. Not much, but it could make it loud. I might even have to open that up just to make sure it's clean inside. The main thing you're going to do is change the 2 bearings, so just swap them in now. Right, that's one. That one is totally gone. Now, replacing the gears in this I don't think would be worth it, so why not just see if we can get away with these bearings. Right, tighten that on now. A little bit of grease in the end, just helps it go on. Adjust it then. Also just going to have a quick look inside. Also just to make sure the wrists and steel balls didn't get onto this. Just a wee bit of damage there. Something got in the eye. I'll just wash that out as well. Now, nothing actually fell out. No balls or wrists seem to be inside of it. So I'm hoping this will be alright. And if it's not, and it's too noisy, we're only at the price of the 2 bearings and a little bit of labour. But I don't think for the age of this thing, the amount of work it's done, it's going to be worth replacing the gears and all as well. Brushes are about halfway worn. When they wear out, they'll just pop in anyway. You can just replace them when that happens. Don't want to replace them just yet, just in case this ain't worth it. Now she'll pop a few times whenever you switch her on, because the grease will be worked around. It should hopefully smooth out. You can hear that initial struggle as it tries to get the grease moved around the head. once it's warmed up, moved into position, you can hear the speed picking up then. Not so bad. You get away with that. It's cheap enough as well for just 2 bearings and a little bit of grease. Plus 2 washers above and below the gear as well. They also have to be replaced. But that'll do. A wee Bosch 4.5 inch GWS 660 from 2010. She's well worn, but worth it at that. Next up, I'll go with another Bosch 4.5 inch. Well wrapped up anyway. Doesn't sound rough. Running. Got a bit of grease coming out of it. This one might just be a wee simple thing. Either a seal gone, or maybe the bearing gone on the head, or somebody just spilt grease. We'll wash it and see. Not seeing anything wrong with this one, apart from just that oil. I suspect it might have just been a lighter oil put onto it instead of that gear grease. See what she runs like without it. Still sounds smooth. We'll do the little cleaning now. Brushes aren't too bad, but we'll clean them out. Right, blow this down first. Only other thing I'm going to do is just check the bearings in this. Can't see much else wrong with it. Not that there's anything wrong with the bearings, but just in case they're starting to go bad, may as well get them now. I would suspect if it's just infrared oil leak, we might get away with the front seal. That one might be going bad. Could be this, just this seal got a pinch or nipped or worn. Mind you, it doesn't look up like it. There's a wee bit of a twist on it there, mind you. A little bit of a flat spot. That's the only thing keeping the grease on, so unless it's that, we'll just replace that as well. But that's all I can see. Head off, replace it, and we'll change this bearing. Yeah, not gone, but on its way out. We'll change it because they're a quick and simple bearing to change. One wee 608 bearing. It just pulls off and drops on. So you may as well change it when you know it's starting to go bad. That's that. Bottom one, still fine, so we'll get away with that. Could change these brushes, but they're still only halfway worn. So as well let them run on down until they're actually gone. And the lead is still okay in this as well, so that doesn't need to be changed. Now, on the oil seal, it's just a very fine O-ring. And then some actual gear grease then. The heavy stuff, not the light stuff. Better for the gears and less likely to leak out whenever it gets hot. Now, so a little bit of oil came out of the head. I would imagine it was simply from the wrong grease being used, or else that seal been worn. But that should cure it now. Heavier grease should stop it from coming out, and that bearing changed would hopefully stop this coming in again very shortly whenever it's eventually failed. Now we'll test out one of the Makita ones. I'm a fan of Makita tools. They have good enough grinders, generally do last. This one's 2007. There's nothing wrong with them, but I would prefer the Bosch grinders myself. More comfortable to use or something, but not to say these aren't good. That's not good. Oof. It's well stuck on there. It's actually caught in the lead. Sounded bad, but is it bad? There ain't much left of that brush. Question is that motor gone? That spluttering could just be from these brushes. And spring's definitely still strong enough anyway. Look at that. Nothing left of that at all. We'll replace these first before we do anything. But But when they get that low and they're actually running on the copper lead on the lead itself, sometimes they can do damage. Might get away with it on an older one like this, but for a newer one you definitely won't get away with it. That's just cement. A bit of a patch job put into this as well. It's another reason why she was so tight. Well, I'll see what works first. Well, worth trying for the likes of this one. What is she? A 9557 NB. A CB325 brush. Really cheap. Only cost like €5 for a set of these. It's well worth trying it, just in case. Especially if the brushes are worn down that far. They're not worn that much, they're only halfway. It's not the brushes, but when they go that far, it sometimes can be. Spot on. Just the brushes, nothing wrong with the armature at all. A little bit of spark in there, but you can see it coming from either side of the brush. That's because the actual com bar on the armature is disc shape. It's worn on a little bit, so it's only the two corners actually touching. So whenever that actually beds on, that'll actually stop sparking as much. That's it. One set of brushes in that one. And I'm gonna have to see what they did here. Yeah, so I'll just rewire that on when I'm at it. There's not much point in leaving it like that. Now replacing the lead in these Makitas, a bit of a torture. They don't just go on up here. To be honest, the lead placement on them seemed like a bit of an afterthought, to be honest. It's like they designed the machine and then decided where they're going to put the cable. And they said to just stick it on here, but it actually comes up down and behind here in the housing and screws onto the other side of the switch. You have to unhook the switch and pull the switch out to stick on a new cable. But because it goes down here, the leads need to be very long, so give yourself plenty of room when you're putting a new one on. It on there first and then pop off this little lever, the linkage arm for your switch. And there's a little lever here. Hold that on and push out your switch. And that should tidy that up. Your lever then, push in your switch, click your lever back into place, and then make sure all your cables are sitting down, not going to get snagged, don't have a big lump of insulating tip on them, and just close her up. Nice easy repair, only a set of brushes needed. Didn't need to tidy up the cable, just rather not send it back with a big joint with unslitting tip. See what I mean? Nothing wrong with them. I just prefer the Bosch myself, not to say that the Bosch is any better. That's her, one Makita with a set of brushes, 9557. Right, that one went so well. We'll go on to the other one. Actually, this might be an easy one too. Switch is missing. First off, make sure she runs. No. So switch is missing and she's a non-runner. Doesn't look bad. The brushes are in place. Check the lead. Or we'll just check the fuse, which is missing. I always go for leads and brushes first, and never think to check a fuse. Let's try it again this time. Put a spark in there. Right, that one could be on its way out. It's not looking good anyway, but the price of that, may as well stick it on. This only costs like €1 or €2 at the most. And because this one's not like the Bosch you have to dismantle most of the machine, pull out the armature and all to click this in to the actual sliding bar inside. The Makita's a lot easier. Instead of pushing on, this is actually just a little hook. So this just hooks onto the bar. Because the bar is always on a spring being pulled down, it always keeps this here attached on. So it's actually a lot easier to change. So push it all the way to the top and then drop it on. And push up and pull down on your slider then to lock it into place. So it won't go on. Sometimes it was fresh and it's not worn at all. It's just a tight fit. Every time you push the switch down, the little hook is just pushing this here slider back, so it literally just bends out of the way. What you have to do then is pull off the head, pull back the brushes, pull out the armature, unscrew the dust shield for the field. Then you can actually just hold the bar itself and drop this on, then reassemble it. Just like the Bosch. Sometimes when they're this old, what is she? 2014. They're worn enough that they can actually just drop on their own. It's only sometimes you have to dismantle them. Luckily, it ain't very often. So that wee €1 part, little slide switch. Gets this one up and running again, albeit badly. But for a few euro, it's still running. You can do for a backup or something. So I'll leave it running at that kind of money. Alright. On to the last small grinder. Another Bosch 7115. Here's a little stuff actually. Same as the other one. What's wrong with it? Doesn't sound bad, but it does feel, I don't know, a little bit stiff or something. And it feels like a little bit of vibration back here. Crack her open and have a wee look. This could be just bearings starting to go as well. Brushes aren't too bad in this one. Still have to move them out of the way though. Might need a little bit of a clean as well, they're a wee bit sticky. Yeah, just bearings. That one's gone, this one will be gone. So I'll get them replaced. I'm just sticking that nut in the vise and turning the armature by hand. It's enough to tighten it and take it off. So desperately needs a bit of a clean as well. Look at that. She's just getting packed out. That could be what's destroying the bearings too, because all that cement, dust, bills makes the armature unbalanced. Give it a clean. Blow that out with a compressor as well. There seems to be a little bit of an oil leak going on here too. Yeah, that one's starting to go. Right, give that body a quick blow out, clean them, and wash this down. And I think this could be looking the same way. Too light a grease. And it looks like hammer grease or something. And just wash this out as well and put in fresh gear grease. Just in case it's doing the same thing and actually leaking because of that. Yeah. That looks a little bit too light. Wash this all down. Bottom one's the only one difficult to get off on these things. You have to actually get a bearing puller or something. That's a 607 and this is 608. And I would really need to order a few new bearings because I'm very low. Press that on. Now that's that on. If we put this one on, little washer on top. Plastic sleeve, just a little rubber packer, and your bearing. Just put that on afterwards actually. This one just pushes on easily, and that little sleeve centers it. Big washer down on top. in your gear and your nut. And again, just hold the nut in a vise, turn the armature by hand to get that good and tight. Just stick this half back together. And then again, heavier grease. Rub the dirt off them brushes before you put them on. Make sure they're not sticking. Now we're upside down here too. Wasn't looking. Not that it's a big deal. You can easily just swivel the head around, put it in any orientation you want. Now, that's another one, all ready for work. That one shouldn't be too old because it actually still has the original plug and lead. Yeah, maybe 2021 maybe. That's her, up and running again now. Alright, next we'll move on to the bigger one. Makita grinder, 9-inch. This is the 9069 grinder. And she's from, yeah, 1999. Queer age this one. Oh, but we might not be fixing her though. That head doesn't sound good. There's a bearing gone there. I imagine there could be gears gone. Plus, why is that nut sitting like that? Well, that might just be rust. Yeah, that bearing's definitely shot anyway. We'll open this up first, see which kind of state the gears are on. Now the head off, then we'll give it a wee run then to see if the actual motor still works or not. Yeah. Well, the gears actually don't look too bad. That's obviously gone, but this is also gone. Wouldn't want to be running it like that. The whole head's gone actually. The needles in there completely collapsed. Right, we'll see what it does now. Nothing on the head of it. Surprising that gear doesn't look damaged either. No. Should run with a fuse like that. So I wrap some tin foil on it. Right. Not the fuse. Could be. They're worn anyway. I'm not sure about that motor. It's not looking healthy inside. And bearings also aren't very good. Give it a quick wee clean. It doesn't look great, but I don't know if it looks gone or not. Now the armature's okay. She's discoloured, but it's not gone. You can tell by the actual gaps between the segments. There's none of them burnt or enlarged or rough. They're all very even. And the field's still connected. I'm going to put a set of brushes on and see if it runs. There's not much point in doing anything else unless we can get this to actually run first. The motor's good. Just needs brushes. We can replace the head. But it's not going to be worth the motor. CB203s for this one. The other possibility is a switch. Switch wouldn't be that big a deal. You can get them fairly cheap. I could even have a second hand one there too. Does that cure it? No. This is getting more expensive. The lead is good. Right, switch is okay, lead's okay, plug's okay. It's not the brushes, so it's either going to be a field or an armature. So this might be coming too expensive. Plus we have to change these bearings and fix that as well. First off, we'll price the head and see how much it is and if we even have one in stock. Right, I think this is just getting a bit too expensive. The head costs around €50, which wouldn't be too bad if that's all needed, but it's also going to need bearings as well. So 1, 2, 3 bearings, then the brushes also. That would make it a little bit more expensive, but still worth it. But if there's something else gone as well, like the field, then it's probably not going to be worth fixing. So field's another 40 or 50 euro again, so this is going to at least 100 euro to repair this. In other words, that's just not going to be worth it. Plus armature's a little bit questionable as well, doesn't look the best. I think this one's just had its time done, to be quite honest. I made the damage up in here, but you see, would be surprised if it doesn't do more damage somewhere else. Gotta just let the thing retire when it's ready to retire, and I think she's about retirement age now. Fixing that is getting onto the price. Basically a small Makita 9-inch grinder. Just quickly stick her back together and get her out the door again. You get halfway through fixing that and find even more again. Or you get the whole thing fixed up and running and it could be sparking like mad. The armature could be on its way out. It's just not worth the risk, and it still wouldn't be worth the price now. So that is a no-go. Give them all those wee bits back just in case he happens to need them somewhere else. And get rid of that. These back in stock and clean the bench down, because this thing was a queer mess. Now, the last one in this mystery bag is a Makita SDS drill. I'm surprised I only have the one on. Normally they have quite a few SDS drills in for repair, but just the one this time. This is the HR 2630 from 2019, and clearly seen quite a bit of work, and it was in for repair before too. Right, let's see what she's doing. Doing nothing. I was going to say it could be the switch. It felt a wee bit stuff there, but I didn't have this lever engaged. It wasn't all the way around. So the brushes aren't worn out, but they are all dirty. Unless they're sticking. Right, test the simple stuff first. Oh, and it is a simple one. A lead. But could it be even simpler than that? Could be. That fuse is gone. Yep. Rarely is it only a fuse, especially when they have a 1 amp fuse fitted. What have they got that on there for? Couldn't even pull the trigger of that. That's meant to be a 13 amp fuse, so obviously they've changed it, put on the wrong one, it's just blowing again. Hopefully it is just that. But if it blew the 13 amp fuse, the question is, why did it blow that? We'll stick a new one on. There could still be more wrong with it, but we'll not know until we get it to run. Close that up again now. Give her another test. Couldn't be this simple. Actually, it could be. Are you kidding? That's a terrible thing to actually end the video on. A fuse. And she's hammering too. That's all it was. Amazing. Doesn't often happen, but it still does happen the odd time. Somebody's sending a machine that just needs a fuse. Is that not closing now, look? It's better. Right. Obviously somebody tried to change it. You just assume everybody can change a fuse. This man can, but he fitted a 1 amp fuse, which ain't big enough for something like this. A 13 amp fuse for power tools, because even initial startup on this here is actually going to blow a 1 amp fuse under load. It's not going to hope. 5 amp fuse not enough. You might get away with a 10, but really a 13 amp fuse, because when these have been dogged and abused, they're going to suck a lot of amps, so you need the 13 amp fuse. Anyway, that's the lot. That's all the tools out of the mystery bag of tools. All looked at. Most of them up and running again. Only ones that weren't fixed is the 2 Hitachi's, which are fairly old anyway and worn out. Plus those older Hitachi tools weren't that great to begin with anyway, so at least you got a bit of time out of them. They weren't fixed, nor was the Makita 9-inch grinder, which was just too old and worn out to be worth fixing. But everything else up and running again, and nothing too complicated and nothing too expensive. So your man should be happy with that result. He's got plenty of tools to get him up and running again here now. Anyway folks, thanks for watching. Give us a wee like and a follow down below if you're enjoying the videos. And as always, if you have any questions, drop us a wee comment as well. And also, I'm hoping on the new Makita nail gun being available shortly. It's now coming up to the end of February. Supposedly it's going to be in Ireland beginning of March. So as you know, we done a teardown video on the new DeWalt gun about a month or two ago, which turned out to be fairly bad, to be honest. Not a great gun, and I've actually used it myself since and give it to somebody else as a lend to see what they thought. And basically they just given it back to me straight away, saying they didn't want to use it, jammed up too many times. Bit of a torture. So DeWalt gun definitely isn't one to be recommending, but hopefully the Makita one is going to be better. I said I was going to do a teardown video on it, and I'm hopefully going to do whenever it becomes available. Going to be raiding the Patreon and the membership fund to actually pay for it, but there probably won't be enough money in it, so I'll get more money together to actually buy that one, do a teardown video on it as well. So stay tuned. Hopefully whenever that becomes available, we'll be buying that for a teardown and see if the Makita gun is going to be any better. But if you want to throw any money into it, any funds going to the channel, donations and that will be going towards the Makita gun. If you want to see that day one, if you want to throw anything towards it, stick around and we'll put it towards the Makita gun. We'll do a teardown video on that there whenever it comes out, hopefully in a few weeks. Anyway folks, thanks for watching. Cheers.